Are reportedly crafting economic sanctions this week to punish China for not doing enough to stop North Korea. Joining us now is Mclaughlin Associate CEO and former Trump campaign pollster, John Mclaughlin. So sanctions on China.
Right.
Will this be, though, a drop in the bucket? Will it be enough financially to get China to change its behavior on
I don't know, but it's going to be a shift because China's gotten away without consequences with this, because on the one hand they're telling us they want to help, but then their actions, they do nothing. And in the meantime, North Korea, it's a really serious threat when you have North Korea with nuclear weapons that could reach the mainland United States easily. And they're playing games with Iran. And Iran they're sharing technology for these ICBMs. This is a really serious threat. And President Trump, he scores high marks. His core base of support is on security, on making America strong. And his base understands what he's doing is the right thing in North Korea, it's the right thing with Iran, it's the right thing with Russia. So, and now China, if they want to trade with us and make a lot of money, well, you better realize there's a downside if you don't help, because they're the one country that has influence on North Korea.
Now, he's gotten relatively easy on China so far in his presidency. He said he was going to come out on the first day and declare them a currency manipulator. He's tried to work with them. Do you get the sense, especially with these tweets on Friday, that there's a shift happening and they're saying, you know what, let's use trade, which is so important to China, as a real lever to try to get them to move on North Korea? Are things changing inside that White House on this front?
I think they are changing, because China may have been very nice to President Trump in return.
Over that delicious slice of chocolate cake at Mar-a-Lago.
Right. They had given an impression that they were going to work with us with North Korea, and they didn't. So I think now it's a point where the actions are different. Plus, you know, President Trump got elected talking about trade with China that has been unfair, that the United States has lost jobs, that the United States is running a trade deficit. So he kind of withheld action on that to see if they would help us on the security.
Well, he scores double points. He hits them on trade, which a lot of American manufacturing workers want to see.
Right. And
he tries to get leverage with them on North Korea.
Well, on North Korea, it looks like the first step they'll take from a financial perspective will be additional sanctions on banks and Chinese companies that are helping support the nuclear and weapons program in North Korea. We saw a few moves in late June from the Treasury Secretary, which you have brought up on this very program, John, about there were sanctions on the Bank of Dandong, I think.
Right.
But will this really amount to enough financial pressure, enough of a financial hit to China? Because China could step back and say, hit those entities with sanctions. It doesn't matter to our overall economy.
Those are pinpricks. It's when he starts saying we're gonna make this a central part of our trade relationship with the country, where it starts to matter with the Chinese, because their economy is slowing. They built their economic model on exports. If we say, you know, we're your largest consumer, we're just not going to play that game anymore, then maybe they change the way they behave.
But as Buck Sexton once said to me, he was like, trade wars lead to real wars. So be very careful, Lindsay, in terms of starting a trade war with China, even if it's over something critically important like North Korea.
Well, and that's exactly the point I was going to make. What happens in retaliation from China? We're seeing retaliation from Russia. What does China do in response to any sanctions we enforce?
Well, China, when you look at them, the way they're trying to expand, they're building islands in the South China Sea to expand militarily, and they were, you know, pushing around and stuff. But the real thing is, you wonder if they're doing things behind the scenes to encourage North Korea, because it destabilizes us, destabilizes Japan. So you've got, you know, here, it's one of those things. You can either get tough in the short run, like President Trump's doing here, or in the long run, when you think about it, with Presidents Clinton, Bush, President Obama, North Korea has gotten away with a lot that they've gotten to this point.
And I want to point out that China just over the weekend unveiled new, more mobile intercontinental ballistic missiles in a parade where Xi Jinping was standing there wearing combat fatigues and a peaked cap. So I think that that's sending a very clear message about China's goal in terms of its growing military might.
And this is why Japan is such an important partner here, because, you know, if China and North Korea are getting more belligerent, Japan is a lot more threatened, and South Korea is a lot more threatened than the United States is at this point.
I mean, one of the things that a lot of people are talking about, my friends on the left and other side are saying we are about to destroy a relationship with China when they hold a lot of our debt. We have
the second largest holder of our foreign owners.
There's this idea, well, they could sell all of our treasury bonds and then our interest rates will rise. But they're not in a position to do that, because if they dump all of our debt, then the dollar declines in value, the renminbi increases in value, and that hurts their trade position. They're prisoners of all the debt that they've bought from us.
What were you going to say, Lee?
It just seems to me, though, that in the long term, they're talking about how if we don't have them as a partner, and we have a lot of manufacturing comes from over there. I mean, a lot of our economy is driven by our relationship with them. So people are really concerned about the relationship in the long term. Now, I understand both sides of it, but how do you respond to those folks who are saying if we damage this relationship, we're actually hurting ourselves?
Well, I don't think so at this stage, because they have the better end of the deal. You talk to Commerce Secretary Ross, or you talk to Steve Bannon in the White House, they can cite to you facts and statistics about how basically China gets the better end of the trade deal. So for the better end of the trade deal, not to take in security concerns for your biggest customer, that's a problem.
Right, and that's a really good point.
They have more to lose. You know, so we benefit in certain ways with cheap goods at Walmart and stuff, but they have a lot more to lose if trade relations explode.
Yeah, never forget that. And